Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matrikya Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Vrindevyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chidarmasya Sarva Dharma Sarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankarachara Majjamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai. Today is a most auspicious day. It's also Republic Day in India, so it's a happy Republic. Any Indians here? No, I know Indians today. Oh, there you are. Jai. Happy Republic Day. Yeah, we looked. We have an Indian flag we put on today, but I couldn't. Our flag. Somebody has stolen our flag. I don't know. It's some government conspiracy or something, but twice a year we put it out. Happy Republic Day. And this year, of course, Republic Day is always on the same. Hey, there we go. We had a bigger one than that, but that's also good. And that's on today's the 26th? 26, right? Yeah, 26th of January, Republic Day. When's Flag Day?
Independence Day?
Yeah, I guess that's August 15th. Yeah, that's right. Summer and winter. That's right. And so this year it also falls on by the Tithi, by the moon day. It also today is Swami Vivekananda's Jayanti day or Tithi Puja, his birthday by the moon. That is Magh Mash, the month of Magh, the very auspicious month. The Magh Mash is this January, February, usually in January, February, and this is when the Kumbh Mela is held. And the Magh, every year there's a smaller Mela called Magh Mela. Small means 10 million people. And every 12 years we know there's a Mahakumbha, means way too many people Mela, right? The last one was, if we believe the numbers, of course, numbers are hard to judge, right? But it could have been 80, 90 million people, maybe more. Hard to imagine, considering the population. That means almost the entire population in India went to Allahabad. Could be, I don't know. It seemed that many people when I was there. And right now, the Artha Kumbha, the half Kumbh, is going on, and that's also expected. Probably 30 million people, 40 million people are expected to go, right? So it would be quite something, maybe more. It's a huge affair, and so this is an auspicious month. Magh Mash is considered a very auspicious month. And so then Shukla Paksha means the bright phase of the moon. From after Amavasya, the moon starts getting brighter and brighter. And Saptami Tithi means the seventh day of the bright fortnight of the month of Magh. This is how we figure out Swami Vivekananda's birthday. So Swamiji's there. We did a puja to him this morning. We worship Sri Ramakrishna Holy Mother and Swamiji. As part of course, every day we worship Sri Ramakrishna Holy Mother and Swamiji, but today we did extra, and Usha cooked a beautiful meal for him and gave him a nice birthday cake. And we were joking this morning that Swami Vivekananda said that if anybody burns incense after I die, anybody burns incense in front of my picture, in front of my face, I'm going to come as a ghost behind them and break their neck. Right? So he didn't want to. In other words, take my ideals. Right, worship the poor, uplift the poor. We do this instead. The person who said go to the poor, we put his picture on the shrine and spend our money on incense. He saw this tendency. It has to be also. It keeps his ideals present, and so every morning when we do it, I always say that please don't mind, right? I'm doing this not because I think I should burn incense in front of your picture, because it's tradition. It's the worship. So today I was a little scared because today we burned a lot of incense in front of his face, but he seemed to like it. Something kind of fun thing happened is that we had a birthday cake and we lit the candles and we sang happy birthday, right? And just when we said happy birthday, dear Swamiji, happy birthday, and just then the wind blew and blew out all the candles. So that was very nice. That was perfect. Right, so we're also joking that either he's really pleased or really angry that he blew out. Stop that! We'll interpret it as really pleased. So anyways, today's a very auspicious day. And I was just, when I was doing puja this morning, as we got to his Dhyan mantra, we've already given a talk on his Dhyan mantra, the meditation mantra on Swami Vivekananda, but I thought it'd be good to remember it. A beautiful mantra describing the essence of Swami Vivekananda. Vishva Acharyam Jagad Vandyam. Vishva Acharyam, he's a teacher of the whole world. Right. This name actually is interesting. These names are not exaggerated. Of course, there's exaggerated praise in religion, but this is not that. It's like, why is he a teacher of the world? Not that everybody has to accept Swami Vivekananda. He's a teacher of the world. Accept, turn or burn. Swamiji or nobody. Not like that. He's a teacher because he can teach everybody. His teachings are for everybody, whether Hindu or Christian or Buddhist, whatever the tradition. Even if you're not religious at all. He's inspired. He's a teacher of everybody, right? We call it Vishwa Acharyam Jagadvandyam, and he's respected by everybody. The whole world worships him and honors him. This is the fact. Vivekananda Rupinam, in the form of Vivekananda. Vireshwarat Saputpanam. He was born by the grace of Vireshwara Shiva. So his mother wanted another son and was not having another son. I think she had several children before. And so there's a deity in Benares called Vireshwara, the Lord of Virya. Virya means a powerful Lord. But Virya also means it's like the sexual prowess, So he's worshipped for to make men potent and able to have children, kind of that type of thing. And so they prayed to the Lord Shiva, this powerful Shiva. People prayed to him to have children. And so I think, if I remember properly, I may not remember properly, his mother didn't go, but she sent a family member in Benares, you please offer puja to Vireshwara so that I can conceive of a son, a powerful son. Right? And so when she had the Vivekananda was born, or she conceived, she attributed it to the grace of Vireshwara. And slowly, amongst the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Ramakrishna's own statement, that he said that he was Vireshwara. He's born by the grace of Vireshwara, but he's also Vireshwara. Right, so maybe he's an incarnation. We hold like that, and sometimes some people would say, "Oh, he's our Vireshwara. He's our Shiva. Is he Shiva? He's our Shiva." Not answering the question because we're not like, "Oh, he's Shiva. Everybody has to accept Lord Shiva as new incarnation," right? But for us, he's Shiva. He's as good as Shiva. He's born from Vireshwara, Saptarishi Mangalagatam, and he comes from the circle of seven sages. And so this is reference to a story Sri Ramakrishna in deep meditation. He says, he himself described, I went to a land in meditation in Samadhi. I went above the universe into the land of gods and goddesses. Above that, I went to the land of the realm of the non-dual reality, right? And even beyond that. So we think what's beyond, that's a big teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. Non-duality is just dual and non-dual. These are just conceptions of the mind. Right, so God is infinitely more than he's more than our idea of what more is. Right, so I went beyond the land of the non-dual, and there I saw a circle of seven sages called the Saptarishis. Right, they're ancient lists of seven sages. They're also in the sky as what is it it's the red bear, they call it around the North Star. What do they call that? What is it? Ursa, yes, Ursa Major. Yeah, that's the Saptarishis, right? The seven sages. They're conceived. People look up and see them, right? But these are considered very ancient and they're the highest sages, above the non-dual reality, whatever that. In a land beyond the non-dual, beyond the beyond, there's a land where and so Sri Ramakrishna saw, and so he said, then I saw, meaning himself, a small child go up to one of the rishis, right, and sit in his lap. And he was lost in meditation. I pulled on his beard and poked him and got him to open his eyes. And he opened his eyes. And then Sri Ramakrishna describing the child, he showed by signs, not by language, that I'm going down, you follow. Right? So, and then when Swami Vivekananda, when he first met Swami Vivekananda, he is the person from my vision. He's that sage. And the idea is that Sri Ramakrishna was that child who knew he was going to take his incarnation. And he brought people to do his work, to help him in his mission. So he brought Swami Vivekananda, one of the seven sages. That's Saptarishi Mandalagatam Jnana Bhakti Pradataram. He's the giver, the grantor, the teacher, jnana and bhakti, of both wisdom and knowledge, as well as devotion. Padma Aksha Gaura Vigraham. He has lotus-like eyes. You know, Swami Vivekananda had very big eyes, right? And very lotus-like eyes, you know. And so much so that he says that when he slept, his eyes didn't close fully. He had huge eyes. But not, you see, it's so attractive. It's not like some people have bulging eyes. It becomes a problem, you know. It's not like that. It wasn't, he had very, very large, powerful eyes. Padmaksha Gaura Vigraham, and whose body was golden in complexion. Gaura Vigraham. Dhyayat Devam, I meditate upon Devam Jyoti Punjam, that cluster, how did I hear? Divine, godly, divine cluster of light. Who he really is, this powerful cluster of lumen, of divine light. Loka Kalyana Karini. Why has, by the grace of Vireshwara, in a golden form with big lotus-like eyes, from the circle of the seven rishis, in order teaching jnana and bhakti, why is he doing that? In order, Loka Kalyana, only to do good to the world, to do good to all people. And that's, you can see this was Swamiji's motto, right? Atmanam, he took a verse and he amplifies this verse from the Rig Veda. Atmano muksharatam jagat hitayacha. This is the motto, Swami Vivekananda's motto, right? For your own liberation and for the good of the world, right? They're connected, right? To do good to the world, right? He even said, if I've done all the bad I've done, all the wrong I've done, all the sins I've committed, I've done for others. He made that statement. You know, the good I've done for others, the bad if I've done bad, I've done that only for others also. You can blame me for doing bad, but I've done it for others, not for myself. And that's definitely his glory. And so, so I thought we can do, there's a talk, there's, of course, we have 10 volumes of Swami Vivekananda's writings. Not writings, actually there's only a few pages. I mean, his actual writings, like letters and like articles or something like that. Maybe half a volume can be filled, maybe a volume. Right, they're not that many. His letters fill up the thing, but the 8 volumes of the complete works are now being re-edited into 10 volumes with new stuff being added. Most of it is from his talks, right? And his talks that he gave without notes, right? In which he rarely repeated himself. That means you have 10 volumes of original ideas. Really quite amazing. Sometimes they're themes, but he doesn't say the same thing exactly the same for the same. He maybe have a theme, but he's bringing up a different point. And illustrating a different point, and again a different point. The creative energy, his creative energy is mind blowing, right? And he did so. See, he came in 1893 to America. That's when he started his public life. What year did he die? Anybody remember? Maybe 10 years later, 9 years later. It wasn't much longer. I'm forgetting. Forgive me. I'm forgetting the number. I should know these dates, right? But Swami Chaitanya points this out. He says in those 9 years, whatever, maybe 10 years, that was his public life, right? 3 or 4 of them he was sick, right? So and he started reducing so much. This was this, so much was this was it. So actually, these 9 volumes of intellectual records, which are only a fraction of what he said. Like for instance, most of the talks he gave in India are not recorded, right? And a lot of the talks he gave here are not recorded, right? But and what he accomplished, both in India and in the West, right? He did in about 3.5, 4 years, right? It's really amazing. Of course, he died young at 39, but it's not that he did that within 39 years. He did it within 3 or 4 years, what he did. Really quite amazing. So this year marks the 125th anniversary of the Parliament of World Religions, or the Parliament of Religion where Swamiji kind of hit the world stage, hit the American stage and then the world stage. And I've been planning, I'm supposed to give a talk tomorrow at the Vedanta Society in San Diego. And the topic is Swami Vivekananda, religious pluralism, and the interfaith movement, right? But I'm not going to give that talk today, right? Because the problem is that, I can practice. I give the talk to you guys, then I'll give the talk. But what will happen, I'll think, I already gave that talk and I won't say those things. and then I'll be lost what to say tomorrow. I know myself. I don't like to repeat. I repeat myself all the time. But I can't give the same plan. I already did that. I did something new, and then I'll get stuck. So I won't give that talk. But within that talk, I'm going to be quoting from 2 or 3 of important talks of Swamiji. Of course, his topics at the Parliament of Religion, which are all important. His opening statement was on religious unity and universality of religion, right? Which is interesting. He came to represent what? Hinduism. He wasn't the only Indian there. There were many Indians on the stage, right? There was a Mr. Gandhi who's teaching about Jainism, very important. There was 2, Manjundar was a Brahma Samaj preacher from Bengal. There was also a Brahma Samaj preacher from Bombay, from the Bombay branch of the Brahma Samaj. So 2 Brahma Samaj people, which is a modern sect of, at that time a modern sect of, now it's almost extinct sect of Hindu, a short-lived modern sect of Hinduism that was important in Sri Ramakrishna's time. We had a Buddhist from Sri Lanka. So it's like, but nobody was actually they were talking about their sect, not about Hinduism. So he actually spoke about Hinduism, not about the one sect of Hinduism. And then but he didn't just talk about it, he talked about all religions, the truth of all religions. He talked about Buddha. He talked about Christianity. He actually helped organize the second great preacher at the Parliament. The star was Dharmapala, the Buddhist from Sri Lanka. So there's evidence Swami Vivekananda helped him organize his talk, how to get the most influence from his talk. So even that talk was highly influenced. He was helping the Buddhists present themselves properly, right? So it's interesting. His presentation of Hinduism was not sectarian, universal, and it was not even for just Hinduism, right? His paper on Hinduism is a genius. That's one of the few written things that he read a paper, right? Otherwise he speak kind of extemporaneously. Not the word, not the word. I got the word right. Extemporaneously, that's not right. What is it?
Extempore?
Say that. Yes, what she said. Right, without preparation, without notes. But back when everybody else read paper, so he read a paper. It's a masterpiece. It's like a great description of Hinduism of his time and historically and its significance of the world. So along the theme of religious pluralism, and we hear in Vedanta a lot, it's a major teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, the universality of religion and what this means. Tomorrow I'll go on more into Sri Ramakrishna's, where Swami Vivekananda got the ideas. Of course, he got it from Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna didn't come up with it as a political expedient and appropriate or socially as the need of the day. It should be so. We think like that. Religion should be universal, and we shouldn't be exclusive, and we have these type of things, But he didn't come. He came from his direct experience of God, a very unique level of mystical understanding, and his teachings are based upon that. But then he taught on it. Vivekananda heard these things, and when he came to America, he preached those things in his own way. And so the 2 talks I'm going to quote from tomorrow, one is called The Way to the Realization of the Universal Religion, and then the second one is called, which he gave in Pasadena, and then the second one is The Ideal of a Universal Religion. I think I'm going to read from that one. So I'm not going to read that much from this one so much tomorrow, so I want to not skip it. And so the argument is like, we need a universal religion. Swami Vivekananda, his universal religion is not a universal religion. He didn't want one religion. He says, but by universal religion is universal understanding of religion that gives credit and place for all religions, or different religions, not all religions, but all different religions, right? And learns from each one. And so he's developing his ideas in this talk. So I thought it would be good to read. Okay. Delivered in New York, January 12th, 1896. The same year of his 18. He gave his talk at Parliament 1893. So this is 3 years already. He's been in the country 3 years during that first trip. Wheresoever our senses reach, or whatever our minds imagine, we find therein the action and reaction of 2 forces, the one counteracting the other, and thus causing the constant play of the mixed phenomenon which we see around us, and which we feel in our minds. In the external world, the actions of these opposite forces express itself as attraction and repulsion, or in the centripetal and centrifugal forces, and in the internal as love and hatred, good and evil. We repel some things, we attract others. We are attracted by one, we are repelled by another. Many times in our lives we find that without any reason whatsoever, we are, as it were, attracted towards certain persons, and at other times, similarly, we are repelled by others. This is patent to all. And the higher the field of action, the more potent, the more remarkable are the influence of these opposite forces, attraction and repulsion. Religion is the highest plane of human thought and life. And herein we find the working of these two forces have been most marked. This is already a big statement. The religion is the highest plane of human thought. And of course, Swamiji himself points out, there's not all religious people are at the highest plane. Sometimes it's the grossest and the most unrefined plane of human thought. But Swamiji is given at the highest interpretation of religion. The intense love that humanity has, so these two forces of attraction, repulsive, love and hate, right? It's true in everything. And the higher you go, the more powerful it becomes. So if religion's the highest, these two forces in religion become the most powerful. So it means the most cause for good and the most cause for bad. Religion can be the highest, the thing that unites the world, that unites souls to God. It can be the thing that bathes the world in blood and hatred and bigotry, right? This is the point he's making. Religion is the highest plane of human thought and life, and herein we find the working of these two forces have been most marked. The intensest love that humanity has ever known has come from religion, and the most diabolical hatred that humanity has known has also come from religion. The noblest words of peace that the world has ever heard have come from men on the religious plane, and the bitterest denunciations that the world has ever known have been uttered by religious men. The higher the goal of any religion, and the finer its organization, the more remarkable are its activities. No other human motive has deluged the world with so much blood as religion. At the same time, nothing has brought into existence so many hospitals and asylums for the poor. No other human influence has taken such care, not only of humanity, but also of the lowest of animals as religion. Nothing makes us so cruel as religion, and nothing makes us so tender as religion. This has been so in the past, and will also, in all probability, be so in the future. Yet out of the midst of this din and turmoil, this strife and struggle, this hatred and jealousy of religions and sects, there have arisen from time to time potent voices, drowning all the noise, making themselves heard from pole to pole, as it were, proclaiming peace and harmony. Will it ever come? Is it possible that there should ever reign unbroken harmony in this plane of mighty religious struggle? The world is exercised in the later part. The world is exercised in the later part of this century by the question of harmony. In society, various plans are being proposed, and attempts are made to carry them into practice. But we know how difficult it is to do so. People find that it is almost impossible to mitigate the fury of the struggle of life, to tone down the tremendous nervous tension that is in man. Now it is so difficult to bring harmony and peace on the physical plane of life, the external and the gross side of it, that it must be 1,000 times more difficult to bring harmony and peace to rule over the internal nature of man. I would ask you for the time being to come out of this network of words. We have all been hearing from childhood, of such things as love, peace, charity, equality, and universal brotherhood. But they have become to us mere words without meaning, words which we repeat like parrots, and it has become quite natural for us to do so. We cannot help it. Great souls who first felt these great ideas in their hearts created these words, and at the time many understood their meaning. Later on, ignorant people took up those words to play with them, and they made religion a mere play with words and not a thing to be carried into practice. It has become my father's religion, our nation's religion, our country's religion, and so forth. It has become part of patriotism to profess a certain religion, and patriotism is always partial. To bring harmony into religion must always be difficult. Yet we should consider this problem of the harmony of religions. We see that in every religion there are three parts. So this is Swamiji's standard. I mean in every great and recognized religion. So this is of course he's judging, but also we have to think, when we're making general statements about religion, we're usually making them about the major religions, the orthodox religions, the established religions. It's also true sometimes of brand new religions, and so Swamiji is not talking about every religion and every manifestation, but we see in the great religions, and we think, we usually think, like I remember when I first started my religious, you were before me in religious studies. It's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and I'm missing one. There's five. It's Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. Five. That's what we learned that was the world religion. Turns out there's more than five, and those five aren't even five. They're each one of them 300, and Christianity is 6,000. Right? What about indigenous religions, American Indian, African religions? Right, Shintoism and animism. There's a lot of other religious ideas. So Swamiji definitely was working at a time where the public discourse was not on every nuanced separation of religion. He was talking about the main religions. So he's talking along those lines. So we see in every religion there are three parts. I mean every great and recognized religion. So let's see. First, there is the philosophy. So the Swamiji is going to mention three parts. So first, philosophy. Anybody can imagine what the other two parts? Anybody ever heard Swamiji use this example, this structure? That's good. That's good. But I think that's probably under his definition of philosophy is probably also theology, the thinking part of it, the doctrine. The second part is mythology, right? Perhaps this is an antiquated way of separating, analyzing religion, but this is not a bad way. It's a useful start. So religion has a philosophical side or a theological side. It has a mythological side, and then it has a ritual side, right? And I remember even the problem is that I went to school. Can't say the problem. With deep respect to our teachers and curriculum at UC Berkeley, but there was no, when we took religious studies at Berkeley, there was no real religious studies program. There was interdisciplinary. I took maybe 4 classes that had an RS in front of it. Everything else was sociology, religion, anthropology, religion, literature and religion. Probably the same. Now it's completely gone. There's no religious studies department at all at UC Berkeley. But as a result, every class was an introductory class, right? Because it was a group of people that weren't religious studies. They were like sociologists, their class on religion, And so as a result, I heard the exact same opening lecture. Religion has 3 parts: philosophy, mythology, and ritual. It's interesting that was the standard. Now I don't think that the way it could be analyzed, but that's how it was analyzed. It's like, do I have to write this down? I think I know the 3 parts, but I think this is Swamiji's original thing. But thinking, where does Swamiji get this? Is it something in Hinduism itself that lends itself to that? And in the Tripura Rahasya, it's also in 3 parts. This famous text. Right, the Jnana Kand? You remember the 3? The Mahatma Kand and the Charya Kand. Right, these are the 3. So the famous, everybody knows, maybe not everybody knows, many people here know about the Tripura Rahasya, important text, tantric text, and Advaitin text. Made very popular because Ramana Maharishi loved it so much and preached it. That they also, even Ramana Maharishi Ashram publishes a good translation of it. But the part that everybody knows is called the Jnanakan. This is full of philosophy. It's full of, it's stories and conversations, but it's pretty heady and abstract and very high philosophy, right? But then there's another part that only recently we translated into, and we're very excited to have, called the Mahatmakan, and that is basically mythology, the greatness of the Lord, of the Divine Mother, right? And it's exactly, and then there's one that was lost called the Acharya Kan, which I think it's called the Acharya Kan, which is the ritual manual on Sri Vidya worship. Unfortunately, it's been lost. That would have been a great addition to the Sri Vidya, understanding the Sri Vidya Puja. But interesting, this book is separated into 3 chapters: philosophy, mythology, ritual. Right. So it's interesting that maybe this is the way religion, Swamiji was seeing the way these great religions are separated. So he's giving a little bit of fleshing out what he means by these 3. First, there is the philosophy, which presents the whole scope of that religion, setting forth its basic principles, its goal, and the means of reaching the goal. The second part is mythology, which is philosophy made concrete. It's a very nice definition of mythology. It's not a sufficient definition. I'm very fond of the study of mythology as an academic discipline and spiritual discipline, and that's not the only definition. But I think it's a very interesting, it's a very Hindu definition, that mythology is philosophy made manifest. My own Guruji, Swami Omananda, he uses this sometimes. He says that actually philosophy is hard to grasp, but the most abstract ideas of philosophy, right, are put in stories that anybody can grasp. It's not just, it's a simple story, you get the point. It's not these aren't moral tales. You get the deep philosophical realizations and worldviews, understanding from these stories, right? Joseph Campbell jokingly defined mythology as other people's religions, right? And some people have challenged actually that we shouldn't call mythology, we should call mythology theology, right? It's actually deeper than just simply dismissing it as, but actually we're not dismissing, it's not meant to be dismissive, but obviously we can call myth as something unreal. That's not what's meant. The second part is mythology, which is philosophy made concrete. It consists in legends relating to the lives of men or of supernatural beings and so forth. It is abstract philosophy made concrete through more or less imaginary lives of men and supernatural beings. The third part is ritual. This is still more concrete and is made up of forms and ceremonies, various physical attributes, attitudes, flowers and incense, and many other things that appeal to the senses. We will find that all recognized religions have these 3 elements. Some lay more stress on one, some on another. Let us take into consideration the first part, philosophy. Is there one universal philosophy? So now we're talking about universal religion, or the harmony of religions. So let's look at the 3 aspects of religion. Is there a universal philosophy? Is there a universal mythology? Is there a universal ritual? How is it universal? This is, by analyzing any part of it, you see anything throughout all this is kind of the theme that he's developing. Let us first consider the first part, philosophy. Is there one universal philosophy? Not yet. Not yet. Maybe not yet. Each religion brings out its own doctrines and insists upon them as being the only true ones. And not only does it do that, but it thinks that he who does not believe in them must go to some horrible place. You've heard of such places. Maybe you heard about it growing up. Some will even draw a sword to compel others to believe as they do. So it's like, obviously Swamiji is he's being provocative in his presentation. And that's his style. We forget how the description we get to, beautiful, what bold thinking, or over the top thinking or subtle thinking, but how it was responded to. We forget the descriptions by newspapers who on Saturday at such and such hall, the Hindu monk Vivekananda, or Vivekananda, they never got his name quite right, gave a talk and then he described. And some of them, people would stand up and scream, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." I mean, he was, of course, we've in a certain sense, we've publicly adjusted, his ideas have percolated, and also the movement of the time has changed. But at one time, these ideas were revolutionary, right? To say they're controversial, one important minister that he knew told him if you had come 5 years ago, they would have killed you. In these last 5 years, actually a lot of changed in culture that allowed for Swamiji's words to be digested, at least be upset about, either people were thrilled or upset about it, but he wasn't in danger. But he said 5 years earlier, you would have been in danger. They would have killed you. So we can see, we don't forget that because who's he talking to? He may be talking to people who hold these views, Some will even draw a sword and compel others to believe as they do. This was not through wickedness, but through their partial through the particular disease of the human brain called fanaticism. This is a beautiful line. Not due to wickedness. This is a very interesting, right? It's not that they're bad people; they're fanatics, right? That's a very interesting thing because usually we give a value judgment, right? That such people are bad or evil or jerks or whatever or something. This is in the Bhakti Yoga, his introduction to Bhakti Yoga. He talks about bhakti bhakti can so easily become fanaticism, right? It's not really bhakti, but it is. It's not different from bhakti. It's not refined. It's not pure. It's not very high. But these are such lines, such a beautifully composed phrase, you know. They are very sincere, these fanatics, and the most sincere of human beings. But they are quite as irresponsible as other lunatics in the world. This disease of fanaticism is one of the most dangerous of all diseases. All the wickedness of human nature is roused by it. Because we all have all kinds of things. We have anger, we have low things also. But in fanaticism we can do things that we know it's possible for us to do, but we would never do it. You know, but in roused by this we can actually do the most horrendous things. Right? He says, maybe I'm not sure if it's in this talk or not, maybe I'll get there maybe in the next paragraph, but he says that religion can awaken the lion inside of us, the man-eating lion, right? We all have it, but it's like as good as we have it tamed, usually, most of us, right? But religion can waken up. All the wickedness of human nature is roused by it. Anger is stirred up, nerves are strung high, and human beings become like tigers. I should have just read along instead of my commentary is just the verse, next sentence. Human beings become like tigers. That's philosophy. Is there any mythological similarity among any mythological harmony, any universal mythology accepted by all religions? Certainly not. Of course, this is also a way of talking about mythology, right? There's Joseph Campbell his work is in comparative mythology, seeing similarities. You can look, between religions there are similar doctrines, they're similar, but they're similar. You can see it like that. That's not the way Swami's meaning it. All religions have their own mythology. Each one of them says, my stories are not myths. Let us try to understand the matter better through an illustration. I simply mean to illustrate. I do not mean to criticize any religion, so please excuse anybody if we don't offend anybody here. So that's why Joseph Campbell says that other people's religions is mythology. Mine is history. Theirs is mythology. That's what he means by this, right? The Christian believes that God took a shape of a dove and came down to earth. To him, this is history and not mythology. The Hindu believes that God is manifested in a cow. Christianity says that to believe so is mere mythology and not history, that it is superstition. The Jews think that if an image is made in the form of a box or a chest with an angel on either thigh, then it may be placed in the Holy of Holies. It is sacred to Jehovah. This is the Ark of the Covenant. But if the image is made up in the form of a beautiful man or woman, they say, this is horrible. This is a horrible idol. Break it down. This is our unity in mythology. Explanation point. I didn't say it properly. Swamiji was like an orator. This is our unit. You can imagine. It's hard. I wish we could know how he said it. It's the drama of the way people spoke. Actually, you can get recordings. Have you heard Gandhi speak? There's some lectures of Gandhi. This is a particular way that intellectuals, English-educated intellectuals spoke, and orators. They're rousing and there's a style to it. Who knows? Swamiji may have spoken like that. If you read it that way, it's actually it's slightly embarrassing. We don't speak that way anymore, but it's actually very thrilling. I can't do it. You'd laugh at me and you wouldn't get the point if I started. Sometimes in my own room I read it this way when nobody's listening, but that's the way it has to be read. You have to slam your fist into the table. He would, Yeah. There's a great recording. These books on tapes back in the early days when books on tapes were a thing. Now it's done differently. Called Discipleship. It had a Shakespearean actor reading Swami Vivekananda, right? This one lecture. So I don't know if that's the way Swamiji was not a Shakespeareanly trained actor, but it's so passionate, Maybe not but it's a very beautiful way to read Swamiji. Anyways, This is our unity in mythology. Again, if a man stands up and says, "My prophet did such and such a wonderful thing," others will say, "That is only superstition." But at the same time, they will say their own prophet did still more wonderful things, which they hold to be historical. Nobody in this world, as far as I have seen, is able to make out the fine distinction between history and mythology as it exists in the brains of those people, of these persons. All such stories, to whatever religion they may belong, are really mythological, mixed up occasionally, it may be, with a little history. Swamiji's style, Next comes the ritual. One sect has one particular form of rituals and thinks that they are holy, whereas the ritual of others' sect are simply errant superstitions. If one sect worships a particular set of symbols, another sect says, "Oh, it is horrible." Take, for instance, the common Hindu symbol, the phallus. This is the Shiva lingam. This is certainly a sex symbol, but gradually that aspect of it has been forgotten, and it now stands for the symbol of the Creator. Those Hindus who use it as their symbol never connect it with sex. To them it is just a symbol, and there it ends. But a man from another race or creed sees it nothing but the phallus, and condemns it. Yet at the same time, he may be doing something which the so-called phallus worshippers, to the so-called phallus worshippers, seems as horrible. Let me take two cases for illustration: the phallus symbol and the sacrament for Christians. Now, this is very interesting because the same type of arguments people use against Shiva worship, lingam worship, is, if with the same misunderstanding, can be seen as far as the mass, right? So Swamiji's being provocative. To the Christian, the phallus is horrible, and to the Hindus, the Christian sacrament is horrible. They say that the Christian sacrament, the killing of a man and the eating of the flesh and the drinking of his blood to get the God's quality of that man, is cannibalism. This is what some of the savage tribes do. If a man is brave, they kill him and eat his heart because they think that it will give them the qualities of courage and bravery possessed by the man. Even such a devout Christian as Sir John Lubbock admits this and says that the origin of this Christian symbolism is in this primitive ideal. Most Christians, of course, do not admit this view of its origin, and what it originally implied never comes to their minds. It stands for a holy thing, and that is all they care about. So even in ritual, there is no universal symbol which can command general recognition and acceptance. Where then is there any universality in religion? The Swami's challenge. How is it possible then to have a universal form of religion? I am convinced, however, that form of religion already exists. Let us see what it is. He says there is already a universal religion, right? But it's obviously not in the philosophies, in the mythologies, and in the rituals. My approach, actually, I see universality in philosophy, universality in rituals, and universality in mythology, right? Because I'm trained to do that. That's my temperament. I'm looking for that, right? As an intellectual discipline, right? But it's not going to be the core. You're not going to convince Christians and Muslims and Jews and Hindus and animists and American to agree with each other because there are similarities. You see themes in their mythologies or similarities in their philosophical conceptions, right? It's not the source of a universal religion. It's an intellectual study. You can see that they're similar or even almost identical in many cases. But that's not the argument Swamiji is putting forth here. Let us see. I am convinced, however, that that form of religion already exists. Let us see what it is. We hear about universal brotherhood, and how societies spring up, especially to preach it. There's so many societies that preach universal brotherhood. I remember an old story. And in India, wine drinking is considered very bad. There were two brothers who one night wished to drink wine secretly. And their uncle, who was a very orthodox man, was sleeping in a room quite close to theirs. So before they began to drink, they said to each other, "Shh, we must be very quiet, or uncle will wake up. So we'll drink, and we'll be really quiet, and he won't know. Right? Many of you people grew up as teenagers in America. You know this. This is an experience of almost everybody here. Many people here, not everybody here. Okay. When they were drinking, they continued repeating to each other, "Silence, uncle will wake up," each trying to shout the other down. And as the shouting increased, the uncle woke up, came to their room, and discovered the whole thing. Right? It's very funny. Right? Now, we all shout like these drunken men. Universal brotherhood! We are all equal. Therefore, let us make a sect. We are all equal. Make it very... It's absurd, actually. But we do. We see it being played out in public right this week. As soon as you make a sect, you protest against equality. And equality is no more. Mohammedans talk of universal brotherhood. But what comes out of it in reality? Why? That anybody who is not a Mohammedan will not be admitted into the brotherhood. He will more likely have his throat cut. Christians talk of universal brotherhood, but anyone who is not a Christian must go to that place where they will be eternally barbecued. And so we go on in this world in our search after universal brotherhood and equality. When we hear such talk in the world, I would ask you to be a little reticent and take care of yourselves. For behind all this talk is often an intense selfishness. In the winter, and he quotes a verse which I don't know what he's quoting, maybe somebody here knows. In the winter sometimes a thundercloud comes up. It roars and roars, but it does not rain. But in the rainy scene in the clouds, speak not, but deluge the world with water. End quote. So, in other words, a lot of noise means no water. So, those who are real workers and who really feel at heart the universal brotherhood of man do not talk much. They do not make little sects for universal brotherhood. Little sects of universal brotherhood. What a brilliant, his play with ideas is so great. But their acts, their movements, their whole life show clearly that they are in truth, that they in truth possess the feelings of brotherhood for mankind, and that they have love and sympathy for all. They do not speak. They do and they live. This world is too full of blustering talk. We want a little more earnest work and less talk. So far, we see it is hard to find universal features in regards to religion, and yet we know they exist. We are all human beings, but are we equal? Certainly not. Who says we are equal? Only a lunatic. We are all equal in our brains. Are we equal in our brains, in our powers, in our bodies? One man is stronger than another. One man has more brain power than another. If we're all equal, why then this equality? Who made it? We ourselves. Because we have more or less powers, more or less brains, more or less physical strength. These must make a difference between us. Yet we know that the doctrine of equality appeals to our hearts. We are all human beings, but some are men and some are women. Here is a black man, there is a white man, but we're all men. We all belong to humanity. There is our faces. I see no two alike. Yet we're all human beings. Where is there one humanity? I find a man or a woman either dark or fair, and among all those faces I know that there is an abstract humanity common to all. I may not find it when I try to grasp it, perceive it, and actualize it, yet I know for certain that it is there. If I am sure of anything, it is that this humanity which is common to us all. It is through this common entity that I see you as a man or as a woman. So we see only difference, but we know there's similarity. We know there's commonality, right? That's the point. So it is with this universal religion, which runs through all the various religions of the world in the form of God, right? It must and does exist through eternity. I am the thread that runs through all these pearls. This is a quote from the Gita. Krishna says, all beings are strung on me like pearls strung on a thread. We talked about this afternoon. Sutratma. The thread, the self is the thread behind everything. There is something within everything. These are the different pearls, and the Lord is the thread that runs through them all. Only the majority of mankind is entirely unconscious of it. So behind all the differences, there's a similarity. Between all of us, there's so many differences, but there's a unity. There's an identity, not only a unity, an identity, if we go deep enough, right? So similarly, between all religions, there's so much difference, more difference than similarity. But there's God is the focus of all of them, right? Of course, we could say, what about the non-theistic religions? That can be dealt with. That's a different. That's not by God. It doesn't just mean one conception of God. Even abstract and personal aspects of reality. The divine reality is the essence of is the thing that runs through everything. But you see, just like strings on a board, we've used this example. We've used the same example to illustrate different points. Almost every week we use the example. It's like we have all these different beads. Each one's my beads are very different. You have a 5-phase and a 1-phase and a 3-phase and a 4-phase Rudraksha bead, right? Right. So they're all differences, right? But they're all Rudraksha beads, or you can say that, right? So that's one thing. Or at least we're all men, right? But in between, there's a thread that holds them all together. They're independent, even if they're all separate beads. They're all Rudraksha beads. You can say that. But even between, there's something that's identical. There's one thread that runs through them all, right? But we never notice it because it's hidden within a thread within the bead is hidden, right? That's the problem. But it has to be there, otherwise it wouldn't be a mala, right? So this is the idea. He's quoting, "I am the thread that runs through all these pearls. And each pearl is a religion or even a sect thereof. These are the different pearls, and the Lord is the thread that runs through all of them. Only the majority people of mankind are entirely unconscious of it. Unity in variety is the plan of the universe." These are one of Swamiji's dictums. Unity in variety is the plan of the universe. We're all men, and yet we are all distinct from one another. As part of humanity, I am one with you and Mr. So-and-so. I am different from, as part of humanity, I am one with you. As Mr. So-and-so, as Bhajanananda Saraswati, I'm totally different than you. Right, so he's playing with these ideas of the unity and difference. As a man, you are separate from a woman. As a human, you are one with a woman. As a human being, you are separate from animals. But as living beings, men, animals, women, and animals are all one. And as existence, you are one with the whole universe. Right? As class, we're united, but as self, we all exist. That universal existence is God. This is Swamiji's definition of God. That universal existence is God. And as existence, you are one. That universe is God, the ultimate unity in the universe. Another definition. God is the ultimate unity in the universe. In Him, we are all one. At the same time, in manifestation, these differences must always remain. In our work, in our energies, as they are being manifested outside, these differences must always remain. We find then that the idea of universal religion is meant by the by the idea of universal religion, it is meant that one set of doctrines. Sorry, I have to reword this because he's critical. We find that if by the idea of a universal religion, it is meant that one set of doctrines should be believed by all mankind, it is wholly impossible. Universal religion does mean my religion wins and everybody should surrender. This is not what's meant by universal. Because many believe, there should be only one religion. Jai Hind, or Jesus is the only way, or God, there's no God but Allah. It's it's like that's the only religion. That's the university of religion, right? That's not. That could never be. There is only one God, but that it can never be expressed. The differences must remain. We find then that if by the idea of religion, of a universal religion is meant that one set of doctrines should be believed by all mankind, it is wholly impossible. It can never be. There can never be a time when all faces will be the same. Again, if we expect that there will be one universal mythology, that is also impossible, and it cannot be. It cannot be. Neither can we find one universal ritual. Such a state of things can never come into existence. If it ever did, the whole world would be destroyed, because variety is the first principle of life. Variety is life. Very powerful points. What makes us beings endowed with forms? Differentiation. Perfect balance would be destruction. Take, for instance, the heat in this room, whose tendency is towards equal diffusion. Suppose it gets that kind of diffusion. Then, for all practical purposes, the heat will cease to be. What makes motion possible in this universe? Lost balance. Lost balance. Complete sameness can come only when this universe is destroyed. Otherwise, such a thing is impossible. Not only so, it would be dangerous to have it. We would not wish that all of us should think alike. There should be no thought to think. We should all be alike, as the Egyptian mummies in the museum are, each looking at each other without a thought to think. We must not wish that all should think alike. There would be no thought to think. If all thought alike, nobody would be thinking. Thought requires distinction, needs conflict, struggle. That's a very interesting thing. We all think alike. Horrible. And you can see even it becomes dangerous, even in a group. When people start thinking in one group, people are thinking only the same. This happens, right? We have a walled garden idea where we don't expose to other ideas. We start thinking each other thoughts, a group thought. And then, anyways, different dangerous point also. Like Egyptian, it is this difference, this differentiation, this losing of sameness between us, which is the very soul of our progress, the soul of all our thoughts. This must always be. What then do I mean by the idea of a universal religion? I do not mean any one universal philosophy or any one universal mythology or any one universal ritual held alike by all. For I know that this world must go on working, wheel within wheel, this intricate mass of machinery, most complex, most wonderful. What can we do then? What can we do then? We can make it run smoothly. We can lessen the friction. We can grease the wheels, as it were. How? By recognizing the natural necessity of variation. This is beautiful. Instead of fighting, we actually appreciate the differences, but appreciate the differences are necessary. That simple respect has it move smoothly. We're not fighting anymore. Just as we have recognized unity as our very nature, so we must recognize variation. We must learn that truth must be expressed in 100,000 ways, and that each of these ways is true as far as it goes. We must learn that the same thing can be viewed from 100 different standpoints, and yet be the same thing. Take, for instance, the sun. Suppose a man standing on the earth looks at the sun when it rises in the morning and sees a big ball. Suppose he starts on a journey towards the sun until he reaches the sun. Suppose he starts on a journey towards the sun and takes a camera with him, taking photographs at every stage of his journey until he reaches the sun. The photographs of each stage will be seen to be different from those of the other stages. In fact, when he gets back, he brings with him so many photographs of so many different suns, as it would appear. And yet we know that the same sun was photographed by the man at different stages of his progress. Even so it is with the Lord, through high philosophy or low, through the most exalted mythology or the grossest, through the most refined ritualism or errant fetishism. Every sect, every soul, every nation, every religion, consciously or unconsciously, is struggling upward towards God. Every vision of truth that man has is a vision of him and of none else. Suppose we all go with vessels in our hands to fetch water from a lake. One has a cup, another a jar, another a bucket, and so forth, and we all fill our vessels. The water in each case naturally takes the form of the vessel carried by each of us. He who brought the cup has the water in the form of the cup. He who brought the jar his water takes the shape of a jar, and so forth. But in every case, water and nothing else but water is in the vessel. So it is with religion. Our minds are like these vessels, and each one of us is trying to arrive at the realization of God. God is like that water, filling these different vessels, and in each vessel the vision of God takes the form of the vessel. Yet he is one. He is God in every case. This is the only recognition of universality that we can get. To Swamiji's thing. Actually, it's interesting because we tend, one of the things we'll probably talk about tomorrow, we tend, it has been a trend, right, is that in like the perennial philosophy and the more recent modern rendition of the perennial philosophy, like in who wrote the perennial philosophy, the book? Alex Huxley's book, right? What he does, right, and successfully, but mistakenly, I believe, or not mistakenly, but not sufficiently, right? He said, actually, that all religions are worshiping the same God, right, and they're having the same experience, right, and therefore they're explaining the experiences differently. Either it's two things: either they're not yet refined enough to have the highest experience, they have partial experience, right, or they're having the same experience, but due to cultural differences, they're describing it differently. So the saints may have all saints have the same experience, identical experiences. That's what it means to be a saint or a mystic. And they're describing it differently. That's one view. And people who are not yet saints, or having some sort of religious ideals, right? They don't have very refined, they don't have the highest ideal yet. This is but the problem is that that's not what Sri Ramakrishna said. This is, sometimes it's attributed to what Sri Ramakrishna meant. That's not what he said, therefore unlikely to what he meant. It's not exactly, each person is having an experience, their own different experience of the same God. That's different than they're having the same experience and describing it differently. Two people can have the same experience and describe it differently. You can both have two different experiences of the same thing. The same sun from two different angles. The same mount, the same thing can be seen. Or Sri Ramakrishna's own example that's been quoted, it's put in poems and things like that, of the blind man who comes to an elephant is brought to a group of blind people. This is an elephant. So what's an elephant like? Oh, check it out, right? Well, they can't see the elephant. Of course, seeing is only one level of being, right? But one of them goes and touches the leg. The elephant is like a pillar. And the other person touches the side. No, it's like a wall. A wall. Elephant is just like a wall. Somebody else touches the ear. It's like a fan, like a winnowing fan. Other person grabs the trunk. It's like a snake, right? Other person grabs the tail. It's like a rope. This not the rope. The elephant's a rope. The elephant's a wall. The elephant's like this, right? So all of them are right. The elephant's like that, right? It's not that they have, they all have, they're experiencing the same elephant, but their experiences are differently. The experiences are different. So Swamiji's rephrasing of that is according to what they have only God, but it's going to be totally different somebody else's cup. I have a cup-shaped God, and you have a bucket-shaped God. Right, it's an interesting idea, that it's. Anyway, continue. I only have a few more minutes I won't finish it. I'll read until time, and then we'll stop. I'll be disciplined this time. So they say. We'll see. This is the only recognition of. So this is universal religion. That's the same God, different experiences by different people of the same God. Right. This is a very refined theology. Actually, this is this is Sri Ramakrishna's position. So far, it is all right theoretically, but is there any way of practically working out this harmony of religions? We find that this recognition that all the various views of religion are true is very, very old. Hundreds of attempts have been made in India, in Alexandria, in Europe, in China, in Japan, in Tibet, and lastly in America, to formulate a harmonious religious creed to make all religions come together in love, including the Parliament of Religions. This is also one of the goals, perhaps, They have all failed. Because they did not adopt any practical plan. Many have admitted that all the religions of the world are right, but they show no particular way of bringing them together so as to enable each of them to maintain its own individuality in the conflux. That plan alone is practical, which does not destroy the individuality of any man in religion, and at the same time shows him a point of union with others. Keep your distinctness, but have unity. That's hard, actually. But so far as all the plans of religious harmony, they have all tried, while proposing to take all the various views of religion, have in practice tried to bind them all down to a few doctrines, and have produced more new sects, fighting, struggling, punishing, pushing against each other. This is what happened. He said, no, now we know religion is this. That's the unity of religion. What if other people don't think that's the new religion? Well, they're wrong. They're fools, unrealized. They're fanatics, right? The unity of religion is the new truth of religion. That's the real essence, right? This happens, I have my own little plan. I do not know whether it will work or not, and I want to present it to you for discussion. So what is Swamiji's idea? He has his plans on how to make it work. What's his plan of attack? His plan of work? In the first place, I would ask mankind to recognize this doctrine. Do not destroy. First doctrine. Iconoclasts, reformers, do no good to the world. People who tear it down. Break not. Pull not anything down, but build. Help if you can. If not, fold your hands and stand by and see things go on. If you can help, great. If not, let it be. Right? Do not injure if you cannot render help. Say not a word against any man's convictions so far as they are sincere. Secondly, take a man where he stands, and from there give him a lift. If it is true that God is the center of all religions and each of us is moving towards him along one of these radii, then it is certain that all of us must reach the center, and at the center, where all the radii meet, all our differences will cease. But until we reach it, differences there must be. All these radii converge upon the same center, one according to his nature, traveling along one of those lines, and another along another. And if we push onward along our own lines, we shall surely come to the center, because all roads lead to Rome. Each of us is naturally growing and developing according to his own nature. Each will in time come to know the highest truth. For after all, we must teach. Men must teach themselves. What can you and I do? Do you think that you can teach even a child? You cannot. The child teaches himself. Your duty is to forward opportunities and remove obstacles. This is a very important part of old Indian system of education, right? The Gurukul system and other forms, right? Of course, there's details, technology, language, text like that can be learned, but you create an environment where one's inner knowledge comes out, right? The Western system, the paradigm is that you have to gather information, right? I remember one very great Swami named Brahmananda Yati. He's somebody who comes to our ashram every year. I don't know if he's still living, to be honest, and stays us during the Mela. And one time, he only spoke Hindi, and he didn't know English, and I didn't know Hindi. But we liked each other very much, and we were roommates sometimes. Some years we were roommates. So finally, somebody came, Jayashri came, and Jayashri, a translator. She did very good English, very good Hindi, and good translating philosophical ideas also. Not everybody has enough to know the topics. I said, so I started talking to him, but I said, oh, so you are very. This is a trick if you want to know how you pull nectar teachings from saints and sadhus and priests, right? You don't just ask them. Otherwise, you go to a holy person. Swami Chaitanya told us that you go to a holy person. And what they do, they ask, where are you from? How do you like India? How's your stomach? Do you like the weather here? Do you eat rice? As one of them I was asked in Bengal village, do you eat rice? Wow, you eat rice. Oh, very good. It's like, and you chit chat like that because that's what you want. But you have to cut through the chit chat. So he says, oh, Swami, tell me something that's good for us. So I learned this technique. So I said, Swamiji, we're young sadhu. We're young and immature and experienced. You've been a sannyasi 70 years. You were a sannyasi 70 years that year. Been at this a long time, give me some advice like that. And he says, actually, you're doing okay. What are you doing? I see you do puja, and I see you do japa, and you see you're studying, you're doing puja, and you're doing japa. This is sufficient, right? You don't have to be big, just like, but then he uses this term. He says, Puran Ved. right? And I was like, I have my own understanding of this, but people who know Sadhu language, Sadhus have their own language, what that means. Puran Ved means old knowledge, the ancient knowledge. You say, we actually have, if you do your sadhana, you study in the scriptures, you're in holy company, these type of satsangs, you're doing japa, the old knowledge comes up. And he said, that's the real education. What you already know, we all know, all this is designed, education, training is designed so the old knowledge comes up. It may take forms useful. I mean, you need old knowledge how to fix a car. It has to be, it has to be something has to be in a way that can be financially suitable, right? But it's the old knowledge. Brought that's Swamiji's point. We can't teach anybody from the outside. A child has to learn from within. Your duty is to afford opportunities, remove obstacles. A plant grows. Do you make the plant grow? Your duty is to put a hedge around it and see no animals eats it up. And there your duty ends. The plant grows of itself. So it is in regard to spiritual growth of every man. None can teach you. None can make a spiritual man of you. You have to teach yourself. Your growth comes from inside. What can an external teacher do? He can remove the obstructions a little, and there his duty ends. This is also true of the guru. The guru plants a seed and then removes some things and watches from a distance. And sometimes you have to come in, there's a stick and chase away an external goat that's about to, or your internal goat that's about to eat the seed. Sometimes we're the goat that eats the seed, but you have to let. He removes the obstacles a little, and there his duty ends. Therefore, help if you can, but do not destroy. This is Swamiji's first principle of action. Give up all ideas that you can make men spiritual. It is impossible. There is no other teacher for you than your own soul. Recognize this. Swamiji continues, but I promise, and I have 3 minutes, so we'll end there. What he then brings up, actually, it's interesting. We all hear Swamiji's 4 yogas, right? This is famous. His 4 yogas ideas, right? And of course, he gave beautiful talks on the 4 yogas that became important seminal books on the 4 yogas, right? But actually here he presents, I'm 90% sure, here he plans, I believe. Yeah, so he brings up, there's only a few paragraphs. I suggest you read it. This is a really, finish the talk, The Ideal of a Universal Religion. Wonderful talk. You can look it up, you Google it, Vivekananda Complete Works, the idea, it will come right up. You can read it on Google, on Wikipedia or Google. But there he brings up the 4 yogas. Interesting. These are trans-religious things that work amongst all, all religions have some aspect of these 4 things. Right, and then by developing these 4 harmoniously, which Swamiji tried to encourage people. Of course, we're more our nature may be more devotional. Other people's more for Vedanta and reasoning. Other people's through meditation. Other people's through selfless work and activity and offering their work like that. There's different temperaments, right? But just because it's your temperament doesn't mean that you should be exclusively that, right? So similarly, he wanted people to develop head, heart, hand. Like this, right? And he also, along these lines, he also suggests in this talk and the previous talk that we can learn, as we're practicing our religion, we can learn from other religions, right? Not necessarily that we have to become other religions, right? He wasn't encouraging like that, but we can learn from everybody. He learned this from Sri Ramakrishna's own statement. We learn from other practitioners. We learn from other texts. We learn from other religion traditions itself. And they inform, enrich, and bring, it's like, I'm a bhakti, but a little intellectual grounding is good. A little control of the mind is good, right? No, I'm not a Raja Yoga. I don't need to control my mind. It's only devotion. That's okay. Okay, you don't maybe not need, but maybe a little control of the mind is good. A little maybe a little study is good. A little intellectual understanding is good. Otherwise, any one becomes fanatical. I mean, there's only one without a second on the realm of manifestation is called fanaticism. Swami Vivekananda had a very, I'll end here, but he had I'll close the book. See, I'm going to close the book. I promise. Doesn't mean I'm going to end, but I'm going to try. This is my first step of ending. Interestingly, he says actually that here he poked a little bit on these things, but sometimes Swamiji was a firecracker, And one time he called, actually in Bhakti Yoga, that's right, we've read about it when we gave our talks on the Bhakti Yoga book, Swami Vivekananda. He says that a religious fanatic is worse than a dog, right? And it's a very provocative statement. Why? It says a dog, if you come home if I came home dressed like this, and my dog, you go, oh, so happy to see you. And if I put on jeans and a sweatshirt, right, because I have to be a little bit in the world, I come home, the dog, so happy to see you. And if I put on a Halloween costume, I come home, the dog, oh, so happy to see you, right? Right, so that we recognize the one God in different forms, in different religions, in different traditions, different conceptions. You see, oh, it's only the same God, right? Even a dog recognizes its master in different forms, right? But a fanatic doesn't, right? And even if there's a funny story about a fanatical Shaivite called Gantavarga. Gantavarga means who had bells on his ears. He's so called because every time he hated Vishnu, he really hated Vishnu, right? He only loved Shiva, he hated Vishnu. And every time he hear Vishnu's name, he'd do this. And he'd ring the bells, and he couldn't hear Vishnu's name. Right. So it's obviously, but actually very interesting. He's mentioned throughout several scriptures, right? In mythologies and like that, in examples. Gantavarga. And it says that Vishnu himself appeared to him, right? So one time he was worshiping, he was offering incense to Shiva, right? Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, right? And Shiva became Harihara, half Shiva, half Vishnu. Tried to show, see, it's me. I'm the same person. And what did he do? He took his finger and plugged Vishnu's nose and offered the incense only to the Shiva side. Right? Ridiculous. It's like even this type of fanatic, he's used this type of fanatic. Even if I remember when I first heard this story from Vivekananda about the fanatics, you recognize. I remember one time I put on, those like plastic vampire tees. Halloween was a big deal when we were growing up, right? And I remember coming up to my dog and the dog freaked out and bared his teeth at me. And then I took up the thing, and the dog kind of looked confused and then smiled, right? Because maybe he didn't recognize me in my form, but as soon as I revealed it, then he recognized me, right? Shiva revealed himself as Vishnu, and still he wouldn't accept Vishnu, right? You bring his, and it's like, I'm Vishnu. No, you bring the bells, you don't hear Vishnu's name, So anyway, so this is interesting. The point is that we get the gist that the core of all religions is the same God, and it's not necessarily that all religions are the same, but the center of all religions are the same, and their distinctness and differences add value and dynamism. In the previous talk, Swamiji also says, the problem of trying to make one way for everybody. What if you don't fit that way? Right, that's the problem, right? And so he used examples like you get a box, and so he's like, "Oh, here's my box. This is the new truth. I've just realized, and now go, everybody get in. This is the way to God." And he's like, "So what if you don't fit? I don't fit." He says, "Well, you better cut off your arms and get in, because there's no other way." Right? This is what happens. We sometimes do that even in our own religion. We think there are things in our religion we don't like. But we deeply feel, oh, this is our everything. But we can't accept everything, and so we force ourselves, and we cut parts of ourselves off. Interesting, Swamiji. This is a trend in modern interfaith studies. This idea of how this dynamism. Swamiji commented on it 100 years earlier. Anyways, our momentary worship of Swami Vivekananda through these words, as we meditate on these words. We are so appreciative of that Swamiji came to America, and that Thakur sent Swamiji to America, and that Swamiji came to America, and thus actually Kali Mandir is here because of this. All of us are here because of this. Jai Thakur, Jai Ma. Thank you for your kind attention, Jai Ma Kali.